Hi beautiful people, welcome back. Hope everybody is doing fantastic. Lindsie Chrisley actually dropped her podcast in reference to Without a Crystal Ball, so I will give my thoughts and opinions about it afterwards, so you guys can take a listen and we'll talk about it afterwards. But also, please do not take what I say as fact. Feel free to do your own research and come to your own conclusion. As for Katie Joy's cult members, just keep it moving. So here goes.
All right, you guys, I am going to introduce you to my attorney, and also he has now become my friend. So hello, Musa, and welcome to Coffee Convos Podcast.
Hi, Lindsie. Thank you for having me.
So give our audience a little bit of background information about you and anything that you want to tell them about how we met.
Oh, I'm just a poor old country lawyer. Actually, I've been doing this for about 22 years now. I'm licensed in 3 states, Georgia, New York, and Michigan. I've been practicing in the field of criminal defense for many years, and I met you through a law enforcement contact who referred you to me.
I wanted to bring you on mainly because there have just been some things that have been swirling around Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the good old World Wide Web. And I thought it would be cool to have you come on and just chat about the legal aspect of these things. So if you're comfortable, I'm just going to start asking you questions.
Sure.
Okay. How dangerous is it to report that someone is a federal witness in an ongoing federal trial, whether that be false or not? And if you could just give the background on what a federal witness actually is and why I did not fit the criteria for that to be falsely reported.
Well, let's start with the second part of the question first and then go back to the dangerous part, right?
Okay.
So being a federal witness is someone that's under subpoena by the government, that the government intends to use to prove their case, whether it is a cooperating witness or an expert witness or an accountant that they hired, could be anybody. But those people are under subpoena, they're on a witness list, and they've been provided to both sides, and both sides are aware of who's going to be testifying. And that's what a federal witness would be for the United States government. Now, when you're talking about reporting falsities on a federal crime, these are dangerous things. They're dangerous because, first of all, you have a prosecuting body or a plaintiff, and that person is trying to prove their case. You have, in a criminal case, a defendant who is innocent until proven guilty, and that person is trying to defend themselves. And if you're out there in some echo chamber where your statements can bounce around over and over, these things can easily influence the thought process of the witnesses and things like that. Additionally, I don't know why anybody would ever dare try to insert themselves in the government's prosecution and try to claim things that are not true. It just doesn't make sense. It could affect the case. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So I guess my last part of that is, do I fit the criteria of a federal witness, or did I fit the criteria of a federal witness in this case?
No, you were never subpoenaed by the federal government. No. So you would never have been a government witness, nor did I ever think that the government was going to use you as a witness.
Great to know. Okay, next question. Why does it seem like public figures are allowed to be falsely reported on, but then cannot speak on it? And a second part to that question, once you answer that, is how hard is it for public figures to prove defamation, libel, and slander?
Okay, well, let's take defamation first. Okay, defamation is the umbrella, and underneath that are libel and slander. Slander is disparaging somebody with the spoken word, whereas libel is using the literal word, writing newspaper articles, broadcasts, things like that. Okay? So
Okay.
libel and slander fall under defamation. And public figures are deemed to have put themselves in a position of public attention. And therefore, if you're considered a public figure, there is a higher standard for a public figure to prove defamation in any way. So you have to prove that there is actual malice, okay, which is a very high bar. And the reason being is because, it's believed that because you've placed yourself in a position to be noticed, you're also placing yourself in a position to be ridiculed. It's difficult to speak back on it because their standard is different because you're not suing a public figure. And additionally, you may win, but it's still going to cost you. You never really win the case, right? It costs you thousands of dollars in litigation. I mean, in this country, you can sue anybody for anything, anytime. And once you get involved in that system, it's just churning it out. You got to even wonder if it's even worth going after it because it just seems pointless.
Right. I think that it comes down to if you decide that you want to take litigation on and view that as a sport, or if, you just decide it's not worth it. I think it's very hard as a public figure when you hear things about yourself that is false. Reporting is false and appears to be reckless, is intentionally trying to harm you with the reporting.
All of those things are important, but you have to prove actual malice, which is very anomalous thing to try to prove.
Yeah. And I do want to say when you get into the business and become a public figure, I think that it's unfair for people to say, oh, well, you chose this life and you chose these things, right? It's like there's certain things that I signed up for, and then there are certain things that I didn't. And an example of one of those things would be, people out here posting identifiable information about me, whether that be addresses that I've lived at, things that are personal information about me that would not be important for the general public to have knowledge of. And so it's stuff like that I really just can't get behind.
Oh, I completely understand that. I mean, I think I read there's some kid on Twitter that follows Elon Musk and all of those other people's planes, and they're trying to shut him down. I mean, I can see that. It's a security risk. It puts you and other people in your position in danger, and there needs to be some sort of limitation. The issue there is the litigation itself. If you're like you said, if it's a principled litigation and you don't care how much money you spend in order to get the result you want, think, for example, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, chances are he's not going to he'll see 10 cents on the dollar of what he spent. But it was
Right.
a principled litigation, and that was the point there.
Well, and I think also when you're talking about principal litigation as a public figure, and you referenced Johnny Depp, it's more so of you have now gone out here and slung mud on my name, and now I need to defend myself to clear my name because I know what I do and what I don't do. And I think that, that's where it becomes hard when you're talking about litigation and spending money. At some point, maybe it's not as much about the money as it is about the principle.
I agree 100%. And there are people out there that are fortunate enough to be able to do that, to defend themselves. And unfortunately, there are others that aren't. And that's where it puts you in a position where you have to make like a calculated decision. Like, what is the cost benefit analysis of me doing this? Are these
Right.
people online really even a blip on the radar, or are they really damaging and affecting my brand? And are they doing it with actual malice? That's where it comes in.
Right.
Chances are many of these people that are doing this aren't of the means of the people they're doing it to. So they're doing it to a celebrity and they're not celebrities, let's say, right?
Right.
So, they can find themselves in a boatload of litigation if the person thinks that they're even important enough to litigate with.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I think when you continually get poked, and a person doesn't let up, that at that point, that's when it's time to evaluate the pros and cons of a litigation and say,
Right.
Okay, I've given this person fair chance, or people, or, tabloid, whatever you want to call it, fair chance. And then they just continue. So, okay. So next question. Where is the line exactly with defamation and freedom of speech?
Actual malice for public figures and false statements that are damaging to a person's professional, sexual orientation, or health, I believe, from law school. I'm trying to think back for someone that is not. So, for example, if I deliberately lied to destroy someone's business, then they have actual damages against me, and neither one of us are public figures. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But it's different when you're dealing with someone that's a public figure who has to prove actual malice rather than recklessness.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. Next question. People are reporting that I perjured myself in court in my parents' federal trial. Could you advise on what perjury is and why that was or was not the case? And then outside of that, explain the ramifications of simply being accused of perjury.
Well, being accused of committing a crime, I'll start right there. When you didn't commit a crime, it's as bad as being accused of anything terrible, right? You're whatever. You're a criminal. It could be you're a this, you're a that. In this case, you're a criminal is what they're saying. And if you look under 18 USC chapter 79 under the U.S. Code, perjury says that the person who takes an oath must make a statement that they believe is false knowingly at the time they make the statement. So if somebody were to come to me and tell me, hey, by the way, such and such happened, and then all of a sudden I get a call from the FBI and they say, what do you know about this? And I repeat, I heard such and such happen. Well, I just repeated what I heard. I didn't in any way perjure myself because I didn't say anything that was a lie, and I knew to be a lie at the time I said it.
And I think that is what is important here in this specific situation, because I don't want to speak too much on it myself, because you were very present in the courtroom, sitting next to my siblings when I was testifying. And I can simply say that I did not perjure myself in any way.
I laugh when I hear that. So just so you know, I laugh when I hear that, because clearly it's someone that has no idea what the law is and has no idea what happened, right? There's no way anybody could see what you did and consider that to be perjury. It's just not the person must, that anybody claiming that must be untrained in the law, to say that nicely.
Well, I will just say also, outside of that, you and I have very publicly defended my position in regards to things that have happened in the past. And as you and I were doing that, there was limited knowledge from an entire party that we didn't have access to during that time that we were defending what we were led to believe was the truth. And so to allege that there was any type of perjury by anyone, to me, is reckless reporting, intentionally trying to harm someone and create false narrative. And this person doesn't have all the pieces of the puzzle to be able to make a reckless statement in that regard.
Anybody online, like I said, basically they're in an echo chamber trying to get attention, right? And what they're reporting on you is so blatantly false that it, like you said, it's laughable to me. In your situation, there was never a time that you have wavered in your story and what you said happened. And there was never a time that you were even remotely different in what happened. And frankly, I think there are still some things that might still bother you. It might be out of my place to talk, for me to talk, but, just because you testified, it doesn't mean that everything is, daisies and roses. That's all I'm saying.
Correct.
I'm
Correct.
saying you went in there to tell the truth. You didn't go in there to do anything else, and it clearly came across that way.
Well, I will say that it's hard when your character is called into question and you are basically said to be a liar about something when my story has never changed. I became more knowledgeable of more information over the time of my story, but my story has never wavered. So for that, it's very hard to hear when I come open and honest and choose to be honest about things when sometimes I don't want to be, because I feel like I owe it to the people who tune in and listen to me every week on either of my shows or my social media. They're tuning in there every week or every day. That's harmful to me.
Of course it is. Those are what you consider to be actual damages, right? When you're when someone is damaged, they can say that they're emotionally damaged, they can say that they're physically damaged, but there's also damages that you suffer economically as a result of these types of statements. And, to go back to it, I want to go back to the same parallel with the, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard situation. He had lost hundreds of millions of dollars from losing the franchise movies that he was in. And now he's back in them. So if you look at that suit, you can see that they believed that there were actual damages there. They believed that the conduct that was stated was so reckless and malicious that it cost him X amount of dollars. And frankly, the fact that they decided that they're going to renew the franchise after he won proves it.
Right. Yeah.
So it just goes to show how much damages there are. Now, a lot of people are complaining about that ruling, saying it makes it easier, to sue people. I guess
it creates some kind of case law around that. Would that be correct?
It would, in that jurisdiction there in Virginia, but it's also something that changes the course of public opinion, and public opinion is what changes legislation.
Correct. Okay. Do you think that the law needs to change surrounding media reporting? Do you feel like they should go directly to the source to obtain all facts prior to reporting something. And outside of that, in your opinion, what do you feel is the difference between actual media reporting and gossip bloggers and YouTubers? Do you feel like it's reckless for reporters to not report on an entire story, but just cherry picking bits and pieces?
Well, the cherry picking bits and pieces is something that real reporters won't do, right? So if you're talking to a real reporter, you're going to be dealing with somebody who's going to be, dealing with sources that are reliable. That's something different. If you're dealing with Bob Woodward, if you're dealing with somebody, Maggie Haberman, people like this, right? This is different than some guy running around Atlanta with a phone claiming to be a journalist, following celebrities around and making up stories, right? Mm-hmm. That's not a journalist. That's just a troll. So, I mean, it is what it is. So I have to differentiate the two. I think that there are journalists out there that have created a name for themselves by using YouTube. I can think of one that comes off the top of my head. It was the Young Turks, and now they have like an actual news station, right? So, but then, when you go on there and somebody's telling you that President Obama is an alien shapeshifter, then you got to be like, wait a second, maybe this person is not the right reporter for the story. And so that's where you really have to draw the line. I think that if there's somebody out there that is a legitimate reporter for a legitimate story in a respected newspaper, or the person is respected and has the sources to back up what he wants to, yes. But they can report and say, my sources tell me. But I think anybody just getting on there and making up, their imaginary friend can't be their source, basically.
So, next question. You have been in my life for what feels like a very long time. We've been on this journey together for some time. And this is a topic that has come up for many, many years. I have put my foot in my mouth on this topic a couple of times that I will acknowledge, and we can get into that. But what are your thoughts on the media attempting to out a reconciliation in the family before we are ready to publicly address that? And do you feel like that could be harmful in your opinion? Yes,
clearly. Okay, now this is something where maybe people should back off a little bit and let it take its natural course. Anything that is going to be forced is not going to work. And I think that that's what would be happening, they'd be forcing a situation unnaturally. And as a result, it could do damage to any type of relationship or any repairing of any relationship that two parties might have when they disagree. You're getting these, and I keep calling it an echo chamber because that's what it is. It's you go find what you want to hear, and you go online and you just keep hearing it because that's what you want to hear. You're looking for affirmation rather than information. So, yeah, I think it could be very harmful.
I think that it's fair to say people who tune in and listen to this podcast, they listen to the Southern Tea, and watch my social media or my family's social media. I think it's fair to say that there is public interest in what's going on behind the scenes, reconciliation, if that's ever a possibility, possible returns to Chrisley Knows Best, working on projects together, all of those things. It would be naive to say that that's not of interest because, we publicly live our lives. And I think that people have every right to be interested in that. But at the same time, I think the pressure of media and not all media, but certain media, pressuring to tell the world about a reconciliation that they have no idea about, or the intricacies of that, is very reckless and very harmful. And I think that it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if I went on Instagram, on this podcast, on my other podcast, and talked about this alleged reconciliation, it might come off as there is an agenda behind that, versus doing the actual work behind the scenes to put the pieces back together where they need to be. And maybe not even putting the pieces back together, but forming new pieces. That to me is a much better approach, because that is my real life, and I'm having to live that every day. And I'm not living that to appease my followers, my listeners, whatever, but it's what's right for me in my personal life, what's right for my family, what's right for my son, and as a collective unit to be able to move forward. And as I said before, I've put my foot in my mouth by going on record and saying there's never a possibility for any type of reconciliation. And I will go on record today and say I should never say never in any situation, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future to be making statements like that. So that was reckless for me to say.
I think that there are times when privacy is required. And for any person that is, like you said, if you got on the air and you said, hey, there's a reconciliation or whatever, right? Half the people on Instagram or Twitter are going to love it, and the other half are just going to hate it, just because that's in their nature, right? Mm-hmm. So, it really has to do with authenticity and not caring about that. Now, you and I both know there's a lot more to it than this. You and I both know the history and everything in much more detail than anybody else. So I know exactly where you're coming from, and I know, it's hard to say always and never, and sometimes we say them and regret them. But in this circumstance, I think that what needs to happen is a family just needs to take time and sit, and I really liked what you said, build new pieces.
Mm-hmm. And just for the listener, so they can get a more inside view without me speaking much more on a reconciliation, you are familiar with my family and pretty much met everybody, I think, at this point. And obviously you're my legal representation, but also a personal friend. From the inside, but outside looking in, do you think what I am saying is completely accurate in the way that I am describing reconciliation?
100%. You're being as transparent and foregoing a lot of privacy. I mean, you are a public figure, but it's an uncomfortable topic to discuss, but you're being as transparent as you can be. It's not easy to live with such little privacy.
I will also go on record today and say that I love my parents. I love my siblings. I love my grandmother. And what is the future of our relationships at this point, I'm currently not going to discuss any more than that, other than the fact that I love them and I stand with them, and I will continue to stand with them through the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And I'm very proud of you for that.
Wow. Well, that was a conversation that you and I had not had. So
we haven't been to the trampoline park in a while.
I know. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me about all of this stuff. I really appreciate it. And it's always so fun to just carry on a conversation with you. I love legal talk.
You're going to end up being a lawyer one day.
that's what people have been saying since I was like 5 years old. So maybe I can apprentice under you.
Having argued with you, I can see that you kind of have the natural streak in you. So, well, I really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. If you ever need me again, I'm here.
Well, you guys, I suppose it's not what everybody was expecting. But also, the flip side of the coin is that to me was watch your mouth, don't mess with me, or I will take you to court and I will sue you. So, with that said, but that still doesn't take away my feeling of what kind of shit, shady shit, did they do together? Or what did Katie Joy do for Lindsie Chrisley to prove to Lindsie Chrisley, I have your back, I'm your friend? Because she is so desperate for friends, honestly. First, Lindsie got the lawyer to explain exactly what a federal witness was, and that also KJ was spreading false information, because clearly when she actually said that Lindsie Chrisley was a witness for the government, she showed a piece of paper which said potential witnesses. It wasn't confirmed. So this explains to us, and this should be proof to people, how Katie Joy can take something and embellish it, report false information on it. And as you heard in this podcast, another attorney is making a mockery of her to say that she knows shit about the law. And also, the lawyer also alluded to the fact that Katie Joy has an echo chamber. This was so ironic to me, is that KJ keeps blaming other people for inserting themselves into her lawsuits, but clearly with Todd Chrisley's trial, she was doing the exact same thing. Remember when she sat on that Instagram live and she was talking about her FBI agent friend Steve, and Steve said she should take this kind of information to the prosecution and all that kind of shit? How is that not inserting yourself in somebody else's legal situation? Come on, Katie. Whatever she's doing, she likes to impose on the next person. Just saying. Then they spoke about KJ, how KJ put this statement on her Instagram and said that Lindsie Chrisley had actually perjured herself. But according to the attorney, Lindsie Chrisley did not perjure herself, because at the time of when this whole sex tape story was going around, Lindsie believed at that time that it was her dad and her brother, and this went on for 2 years. And also, she said that she never changed her story. It is that she had learned new information that she was led to believe was true in the beginning was not true. And Katie Joy did not go and retract that story or correct that story. And they also said that Katie Joy did not have all the pieces of the puzzle. And it was also so hilarious that Lindsie Chrisley's attorney kept using the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial or defamation trial as an example, because since this trial with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, from beginning to end, even now that it's over, there are so many people that keep comparing Amber Heard and Katie Joy as being identical. It's hilarious. And then he said that real reporters do not cherry pick, and their imaginary friends cannot be their sources. Again, it's been put out there by Lindsie and her attorney that Lindsie was never a friend of Katie Joy's. So come on, Katie Joy, you got to start using your brains here. You got to start opening your eyes to see what is real and what is not real. These people are, or should I say, Lindsie Chrisley is denying being your friend, ever being your friend. I'm sorry, but not sorry to laugh, because on the one hand, Katie Joy is grown. She's in her 40s. We're not in high school anymore. If she wants to acknowledge herself as a reporter, you got to play the part. If you want to acknowledge yourself as having this friend, you got to separate the business from the pleasure. You can't try to win friends over by doing some shady shit for them, or trying to prove yourself that you are this ride or die, and then insert yourself in family drama. You got to separate yourself, Katie Joy. And another thing is that you can never get in between family. Family is family. Look at where they're at now. No pressure on them, but to me it seems like there is a reconciliation, and that is fantastic, because at the end of the day, you guys, you got to realize it's not us to forgive Lindsie for what she has done to her family or said about her family, or vice versa. It's up to them to mend their relationship. It's for them to forgive each other and to move forward. And especially in times like this, they need each other. They need to be there for each other. Because when Todd and Julie Chrisley go in and serve their time, Chloe is going to need support. Nanny Faye is going to need support. Grayson is going to need support. And all these kids are grown, and I feel they do have a strong head on their shoulders. They know what to do in regard to taking care of their siblings. They're going to have to come together to do all this. Family is family. It's not our place to judge them. It's not our place to know if it's right for Todd or Julie to forgive Lindsie or vice versa. Let them sort their shit out. Give them space. Let them do what they need to do. And unfortunately for Katie Joy, she has no relationship with any family. She's missing out on so much. She is so desperate for that family dynamic that, in my opinion, she'll go through any lengths to get that. And every time it seems to just fall apart for her. And that says a lot. Because why is it always that Katie Joy is the common denominator in every bad situation? So you guys, that's it. I have not seen any response from Katie Joy as yet. I don't know if maybe she needs a cocktail or two before she comes out and says anything, but I will keep you guys posted. Please be safe out there, you guys. Please stay hydrated, stay cool, stay safe, be kind to one another, make good memories, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.